All right, I will call this meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee to order. Will the Secretary please take the roll?
Senator Flores.
Present.
Senator Orenthal.
Here.
Senator Lang. Senator Nguyen. Senator Hansen. Senator Krasner. Senator Ellison. Chair Scheibel.
Here, thank you so much. Please mark Senators Nguyen and Lang absent excused, or mark them present when they get here. I know both of them had presentations in other committees this afternoon, and so this is still, and again, that time of year where we have to be flexible with our timing. Looks like Senator Nguyen is able to join us at this point. I think she might have to leave before the end of committee to present in front of the Assembly, and so just by way of introduction to those of you who are new to Senate Judiciary, we do start at 1 p.m. every day. Please don't be offended if you see members coming and going from the dais. They're all very good about letting me know where and when they have to be other places. Don't take it as a sign of disrespect that our committees run at the same time as other committees. And by the same token, we do try to be flexible with our presenters so that we may take items out of order. If you are giving a presentation or presenting a bill in this committee and need to be taken first, last, etc., try to let us know. And with that, I think we are ready to move into our first bill presentation. I will invite up Mr. Smack from the Controller's Office. We'll have a presentation, we'll have an opportunity for everybody to answer questions, and then we'll take testimony in support, opposition, and neutral. So please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Scheibel, Senators, members of the committee. For the record, James Smack, Chief Deputy Controller, presenting on Assembly Bill 17. This is I'm going to be pretty brief here because there really isn't an awful lot to go into. For a long time, state garnishments have been served on the State Controller's Office, and we've gone ahead and executed them, get them back to the Sheriff's Office and complete the process. But I was talking with our team during the interim, and we were talking about different things that we might do to make things a little bit more sensical as far as our duties go, and this was something that came up. Because as we go through the garnishment process, we certainly log the garnishment in when it comes in from the Sheriff's Office, but then we are verifying all sorts of personal identifiable information with state payroll and with state human resources. And it just didn't seem very sensible for the garnishments to continue to come to the Controller's Office. It made more sense for them to be delivered directly onto DHRM. And one of the main points that actually your chair counterpart in the Assembly made was the one, and one of the reasons why I'm leading with it today, is it reduces the number of eyes on PII as much as anything. When it goes to human resources directly, they can complete the documentation. We can provide all the documentation for them, so they're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. We can train them on what they need to be doing. It's a relatively simple process. My team went through it with me, and after going through about 2 of them, I pretty much had it down. So, and I'm a little bit of a slow learner, so if I can get it down after a couple times, I think we can certainly get DHRM up to speed on this pretty quickly. And it just seems to make more sense to have fewer eyes on PII. So I think this is just a common sense change in the law that we're looking to make here today, in the statutes that we're looking to make here today. And I'm going to stop now and ask if there's any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. How many garnishments are we talking about? I mean, how many do you guys do in a normal year? Do you have any idea?
Thank you. Question on decorum, Madam Chair. Would you prefer me go directly to the senator with my answer or go through you?
Oh, please go direct.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Senator Hansen, thank you for that question. I guess I'm getting a little bit itchy on the trigger button over here. In summer, gosh, I just completely lost my place. How many garnishments? That was the question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, how many roughly?
Average week, we're talking about a handful. We're talking maybe 3 to 5. I mean, sometimes we'll get
Couple hundred in a year then. is
yeah, if that, probably closer to 100 than 200, to be honest. And I mean, we're talking about like garnishments that are basically being executed upon state employees for different state employees. They could also be garnishments being levied upon incarcerated individuals in the Department of Corrections, or they could be levied on retirees. There are some places where you have to move the garnishments to other places. If it isn't something that deals directly with a state employee, we have a writ for basically giving back to the sheriff's office at that point in time, saying this needs to be served upon the Department of Corrections, or this needs to be served upon on PERS or what have you, depending on the nature of the garnishment and what they're looking to accomplish. But if it's a state employee, that would be ours, or what we're looking to move over to DHRM directly, since they handle state payroll.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Of course. Senator Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was kind of neat when they brought the bill up and explaining the bill, and I thought that was kind of neat. But I'm looking at the bill, and it says one line. So he had more time explaining what he did to talk about the bill. So I appreciate that, and I thought that was pretty good. It was, like I said, he spent more time explaining what was going on than about the bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And I think Senator Orenshaw also had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy Controller, for presenting the bill. My question is, in the news recently, I think we've seen that the Department of Education is now going to start wage garnishments for student loans that are in arrears and really ramp that up. How do you foresee that affecting, the Controller's office? Do you feel like you've got the staff if that comes to fruition and there's going to start being widespread wage garnishments for these back student loans? I wonder if you could comment about that.
James Smack, Chief Deputy Controller, for the record, and this button doesn't want to stay on. I did hit it that time. Thank you, Senator, for that question. I've seen the same. I've seen the same news stories that you have. It could ramp up garnishments a little bit, but it really doesn't take an awful lot of time to process an individual garnishment. It was just more about who should be receiving the garnishment versus where it should be. As far as our office's capability, certainly we could achieve doubling that number if we had to, and I don't believe DHRM would have any problem with that, would have any issue with that either, especially since anytime we get a garnishment, we have to communicate with them anyway. We have to get the payroll information. We don't have information on how much each individual state team member gets paid. We have to confirm the Social Security number for the team member versus what's on the garnishment. It's just an awful lot of PII trading places, and we're just trying to get that, out of the equation as much as anything. So, could that ramp up some additional garnishment? Sure it could. But I don't think it's going to be a substantial enough number to drive needing to engage additional state staff or anything of that nature. It's really not a very time-consuming process once you can get all the people in a row that you need to get lined up to get it taken care of, which is really just somebody in DHRM payroll and somebody in the controller's office, and then the final form needs to be notarized. We have 2 notaries on staff. If DHRM doesn't have a notary on staff, we can certainly provide those services for them in the interim until they can get somebody authorized to be a notary. So I don't foresee that being an issue, but thank you for the question.
Thank you, Deputy Controller. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Any further questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much, Mr. Smack. We will now move on to testimony in support of AB 17. Anybody wishing to give support testimony in person is invited to do so now, but I don't see anybody here in the room or in Las Vegas, so we'll go to the phones, please, for support testimony on AB 17.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide support testimony at this time.
All right, then we'll move to opposition. Anybody in opposition to AB 17? I don't see anybody coming forward in person, so we will go to the phones for opposition on AB 17.
There are no callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Then let's try neutral. Anybody here to give neutral testimony on AB 17? Not seeing anybody in person, we'll go to the phones for neutral testimony.
Thank you. There are no callers to provide neutral testimony at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony, and unless there's anything you missed, absolutely, please come on down and to make any closing remarks.
Thank you again for indulging me, Madam Chair. Again, James Smack, Chief Deputy Controller for the record. One thing I neglected to mention in my initial testimony is that this is not something that DHRM or payroll's in the dark about. We've already discussed this with them at length, and they're comfortable with this change as well. So I just wanted to make that point in closing, and thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, thank you. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 17, and we are going to take these out of order. I'm going to open up the hearing now on AB 97 and invite our presenters down to the front, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Shelby, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. For the record, I'm Assembly Member Nadeem, representing Assembly District 34. Co-presenting with me is Serena Evans, Policy Director with Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Today, I'm pleased to present Assembly Bill 97, which aims to revise provisions concerning crime data collection. Although I was not a member, this bill stems from an approved recommendation by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on the Judiciary during the 2023-2024 interim. During the meeting on April 26, 2024, it was found that sexual violence in Nevada is currently being underreported. This is believed to be the case because law enforcement may only report on what meets the definition of rape in statute, which is currently very limited. Therefore, other instances of sexual violence are not included in the data. Existing law requires each agency of criminal justice to collect and maintain records, reports, and compilations of statistical data required by the Department of Public Safety, and submit the information collected to the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History in accordance with the policies, procedures, and definitions of the Uniform Crime Reporting Program of Federal Bureau of Investigation. The UCR program and the National Incident-Based Reporting Program, NIBRAS, are both systems used by law enforcement agencies to report crime data to the FBI. In 2021, NIBRAS became the FBI's only standard for reporting crime data, replacing the UCR program's summary reporting system. AB 97 transitions Nevada's crime reporting from the UCR program over NIBRAS. This update is significant because NIBRAS provide more detailed and comprehensive data on crime incident than the existing UCR program. It captures information on each individual incident, including types of offenses, characteristics of victims and offenders, and any property involved. This level of detail allows for more in-depth analysis and a better understanding of crime trends. At this time, I would like to hand it off to Serena Evans to provide further information on the background and impact of this bill.
Thank you, Assemblymember Nadeem. Good afternoon, Chair Scheibel, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Serena Evans, S-E-R-E-N-A, E-V-A-N-S, and I'm the Policy Director for the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. As Assemblymember Nadeem has already noted, interpersonal violence in Nevada is underreported and as such not very well understood or resourced as our victim survivors deserve. So changing from the UCR, the Uniform Crime Reporting Program, to NIBRS has distinct advantages that will support the life-saving work of our victim services and law enforcement agencies. It's a simple switch, yet it's going to have a big impact, leaving us with a more comprehensive view of victimization through the collection of more extensive demographic data. I'd like to give you just 3 quick examples of how this will help us here. So first, NIBRS requires that agencies document the relationship between victims and offenders. In the absence of this data, we are currently misclassifying many domestic violence incidences. This misclassification does not get to the root cause of violence, causing communities to be less effective in identifying appropriate prevention and intervention strategies. Second, NIBRS collects data on crimes that involve weapons, so understanding the use of weapons by offenders is key for both advocates supporting victims and law enforcement's ability to recognize the likelihood of lethality. And finally, NIBRS collects data on co-occurring victimization, so often more than one crime is committed in a violent incident, and the UCR currently only collects data on the most serious offense, whereas NIBRS will allow officers to report up to 10 offenses. So this creates a much clearer picture of the full depth of trauma victims are experiencing. So in the end, collection of crime data isn't about numbers, it's about people, and when we better understand the full experience of violent crime in our state, we can better prevent it. Thank you.
In summary, AB 97 represents a necessary modernization and update of Nevada's crime reporting system. By adopting NIBRS, we will enhance the quality of our crime data, improve our understanding of crime trends, and better align ourselves with national standards. I urge your support and I welcome any question. Thank you.
All right, thank you both so much. Do we have questions from members of the committee? I see one. We'll start with Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Assemblymember. Thank you very much, Ms. Evans. I guess my question is, are a lot of states moving to this NIBRS system and going away from the Uniform Crime Reporting System? Is that a trend? I just wondered if there's, like, if you know how many are going, or thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Serena Evans for the record. Yes, I don't have the number, but I believe because the FBI has made NIBRS the standardized reporting system, I believe most law enforcement agencies have already made that switch. And I know here in Nevada, I believe I want to say Washoe County and Clark County are already using it, so this will just standardize it across the whole state.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Senator Ellison.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. I don't know if I didn't hear it right, but did you say that you don't keep the numbers like a repeat offenders that keep doing this? How do you do that? I mean, does that go into a data bank of repeat offenders that are doing this? Could you answer that? And I'm sorry, I might not have heard that part. So.
No worries. Serena Evans for the record. So I can't speak for what law enforcement does because the numbers that come out of what we're currently using, the UCR, it's just numbers. So it'll say, you know, Clark County responded to X amount of calls for domestic violence. It doesn't say repeat offenders or anything like that. Law enforcement may be able to speak a little bit more to what they collect like internally. But I know that I don't think there's a system for categorizing repeat calls or repeat offenders.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping we can get that information. Thank you.
Other questions? So, excuse me, I understand that you can't speak for the Nevada Division of Sentencing Policy, but did you discuss this with them before today?
Serena Evans for the record, I have not.
Okay, I recently met with Georgia Powers from the Department of Sentencing Policy, and we had a discussion about our collation or accumulation, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, of statistics. And so I think this would be helpful, but I would be interested to see if the Department of Sentencing Policy agrees, or if maybe there's even more that we can do to ensure that we're getting accurate numbers across the state. And I appreciate all of your work on this. So, unless anybody else has any questions, we will thank you for your presentation and move into testimony. We'll start with testimony in support of AB 97. And I don't see anybody coming to the front of the room in Las Vegas or Carson City, so we'll go to the phones for testimony in support of AB 97.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
All right, then we will go to testimony in opposition to AB 97. Anybody wishing to give opposition testimony is invited to do so now, but I don't see anybody coming forward in Carson City or Las Vegas, so we will go to the phones for opposition testimony.
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Let's try neutral. Anybody here to give neutral testimony on AB 97? I don't see anyone in person, so let's go to the phones.
Thank you. There are no callers to provide neutral testimony at this time.
All right, unless our presenters have anything else to add, I think that brings us to the conclusion of the hearing on AB 97. I'll now close this hearing and open up the hearing on AB 30. Please welcome to our presenters. Come on down, introduce yourselves. Whenever you're ready, if you're new to this room, I'm going to give you a hint that the button to turn on the microphone is on the desk. It looks like a little sticker, and it will turn bright red when the microphone is on. So whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Drew Cross, D-R-E-W-C-R-O-S-S, and I'm the State Forensic Program Director. I'm accompanied today by Dr. Ronna Dillinger, Deputy Administrator of Clinical Services. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon about AB 30. We'd like to offer a brief overview and then be available to answer any questions. AB 30 relates to the process of obtaining pertinent psychiatric and medical information from detention centers for individuals court-ordered to the division to receive competency to stand trial restoration treatment. Nearly everyone admitted to the inpatient unit comes from a detention center, and correctional staff can be valuable sources of information. For some individuals, the behavioral, medical, and mental history records from the detention center is the only history we might be able to gather, since some individuals, due to their mental health struggles, cannot provide a reliable history, which can hinder treatment efforts. The receiving of these records is for the limited purpose of formulating an individualized treatment plan, and there is no intent to gather criminal history. Having the observations of detention center staff can fill in some of the gaps in knowledge regarding history of mental health symptoms, attempts at treatment, interpersonal dynamics with peers and staff, any history of trying to harm themselves or others, and so forth. Passing this bill will provide a better opportunity for continuity of care and can contribute to increased efficiency in forensic services. The wording of AB 30 is closely modeled after NRS 178453, which allows for the division to obtain records from the Department of Corrections, and for similar reasons. AB 30 will lead to consistency across the state with regard to obtaining these records, provide the opportunity for more timely treatment, and contribute to the overall clinical case conceptualization. This bill is only in relation to individuals who have been court-ordered to undergo competency restoration treatment at Lakes Crossing Center or Stein Forensic Hospital. Thank you for your consideration of this bill, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for presenting the bill. I guess my question as to the need for it, has there been an issue in the past with persons who are in NDOC custody not being willing to sign a waiver, or I don't know if it's a HIPAA waiver or a waiver to be able to give NDOC those medical records?
Chair, through you to Senator Orenshaw.
Please go direct.
Yes, you are correct. There have been times where, because of the symptoms of mental illness, someone is unable to sign, for instance, a release of information that would allow us to gather those records.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I just have a clarification on the language in Section 1, Subsection 3. Bear with me. The administrator or the administrator's designee may request from a local detention facility. So that could just be any local county facility where somebody, they could just be picked up and then false arrest, they're let go even. Let's see, which contains information that may assist in evaluating and treating a defendant who has previously been, okay, here it is. It's line 21. A defendant who has previously been detained or ordered to serve a term of imprisonment in the local detention facility and who is committed to the custody of or ordered to report to the administrator. So should I read it like it could be either of these scenarios, somebody who's merely been detained or ordered to serve a term of imprisonment and then is committed? Or should I read it like they've been detained and then committed or ordered to serve a term and committed? Thank you.
Ronna Dillinger for the record. Thank you for the question, Senator. So the way we see this is it's people that are committed to the custody are not there to serve a term of imprisonment. So they're there for competency, so they're arrested. There's a question regarding their competency. They go through competency evaluations, and if they are not competent to proceed, they're committed to the custody of the administrator. And so the term of imprisonment, I think, is in there because that might refer to any past term of imprisonment, because the historical part of this has to do with how are they historically. So people with mental illness present differently at different times in their mental illness, so there may be where they are currently before they come to the custody of Lakes Crossing or Stein Forensic Hospital. But perhaps they were there for a term of imprisonment 2 years ago, and maybe they were on different medications that might have worked then. If they were any risk to themselves or others during a past term of imprisonment, which I assume is after a conviction. So that would be why we're looking for the most recent observations of correctional staff before they come to inpatient custody, as well as a little bit of historic perspective.
Thank you so much. Okay, so just to get it in the record, it should be read as in section 1, subsection 3, line 21, that they have been detained and who is committed or ordered to serve a term of imprisonment and is committed. Is that correct?
Ronna Dillinger for the record. I think that is correct. So if they...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I think our legal counsel also has taken a look at this.
Okay.
If you want to go ahead.
Yes, it's correct. It's either detained or serving a sentence. Obviously, with jail, you have people who are awaiting trial and people who are in there because they're serving a term of imprisonment. So that goes with it. Also committed for the division to evaluate their competency also. So it's an and. So yes, your example was correct, that you're reading it correctly.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, I don't see any, so thank you so much for presenting to us. We will move now into testimony. If there's anybody to give testimony in support of AB 30, now is the time to come forward here in Carson City or in person in Las Vegas. I don't see anybody coming forward, so we will go to the phones for testimony in support of AB 30.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working, but there are no callers to provide support testimony at this time.
All right, then, we will go to opposition testimony on AB 30. Anybody wishing to give opposition in person is invited to do so, but I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to the phones for opposition testimony on AB 30.
Thank you. There are no callers to provide opposition testimony at this time.
All right, let's try neutral one more time. Anybody wishing to give neutral testimony in person on AB 30 is invited to do so. Not seeing anyone, we'll go back to the phones for neutral testimony on AB 30.
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Okay, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony, and unless there's anything else you want to add, that brings us to the conclusion of our hearing on AB 30. I will now close the hearing on AB 30, and that takes us to the last item on our agenda for today, public comment. Anybody wishing to give public comment in person is invited down to the front, but I don't see anybody coming forward in Carson City or Las Vegas, so we'll go to the phones, please, for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. We are meeting again, same time, same place tomorrow, and until then, we are adjourned.